Wow, I seem to be lagging. That's not a good sign. Chelsea, get off the internet. The hell's wrong with it? Anyway, hi, this is Aaron the Pedantic, and I am going to try and catch up on my campaign diaries for my AD&D Greyhawk games. It's been kind of crazy, and like I said in a post for my subscribers, I'm going to be picking up the pace now, especially since we are back to being monetized. So we're back to being a good Christian channel with no cursing, absolutely nothing controversial. And maybe, I don't know, I might throw in some controversy so I can get those views, huh? Yeah. But yeah, it's what I basically intend to increase the tempo of content, at least somewhat, manageably. I'm still working full time and all that kind of stuff, so I can't go crazy, but I can try a little harder. Anyways, so in the Greyhawk game, it's actually been we've played 3 whole sessions since our last update. So the Group A is played twice, and Group B is played once. We have some comments already. Doof says yes. So those who don't know, Doof has been, well, he was playing Dark Souls in our Discord. I know that this is a campaign diary and I'm streaming it, so I'm sorry, I'm going to go off track here and there. He's been streaming Dark Souls in our Discord, and all of us got to, basically eat popcorn while he died against Gwen, the final boss, over and over and over and over and over and over again. And I just got to say, kudos to him for sticking through it. I assume that he finally beat the thing because I had to go back to work. I couldn't keep watching, but for as long as I watched, he had the patience of a saint. Eric says it hasn't been crazy, but it's been a little crazy. It's been a little crazy. And Dolly Pop says absolutely nothing controversial. Chelsea walks in with a haven't you people ever heard of? Closing the goddamn door. Dang it, you made me do it. Yes! You made me say the bad word. Doof says now it's the same with Dark Souls 2. Well, Godspeed, Doof. You got this. Make it happen. Eric says no dragons have died. Not yet. I'm pretty sure everybody's pretty pleased that there hasn't been an opportunity for a dragon to die, because that means there's an opportunity for everybody else to die. Anywho, so Group A, let's try and catch up Group A first. All right, so Group A, where we last left off, they were in town. From what I recall, they were, let's see here. They were turning in some of their finding. They had, done a little bit of it. Oh, okay. So they had rescued, Otis and from the Bandits Keep, which I'm just going. Well, it's not the Bandits Keep. That's just one of my favorite channels from the Bandits. And I will say this, I guess, for those of you that maybe you're familiar with Hamlet, this is a different Otis than how you remember him. Otis is an official character in Hamlet, but I'm using him a little bit differently, and that will have some carry-on effects. But basically, Otis is the brother of Elmo, and they rescued him, took him back to town, and they were offered his magical axe as payment, which I don't think that they knew that it was magical. If they knew, they may have taken it, but instead they told him to keep it. This may actually work in their favor later, as it turns out. And so what happened is they decided to try and see about recruiting some more people, because they realized that this place was pretty deadly already, and they were still not going any deeper. And everybody kind of understands in old school Dungeons and Dragons, go down the floor. I don't know. Well, actually, the deeper you go, the stronger the foe. Let's go with that one. So, because of that, they actually kind of cock teased one of the NPCs, somebody that they may have recruited, but whenever he basically said, "I want a full cut along with everybody else," they said, "Nah, screw that." For those that don't know, the reason that I'm saying he wants a full cut, because if you look in the rules for hirelings and all that, basically it says that for hirelings, they're generally not going to want to work for people that are not at least higher level than them. So with this, just about everybody is the same level as they are. All of them are level 1. So to me, I was like, well, I see you as equals. Why would I take a half share and take on equal risk, unless I believe that you are extremely competent and all that stuff. So basically, they chatted up this guy named Zert to try and see if he might be interested in coming with them. And whenever he wanted an equal cut, they said, "Screw you guys, we're going back, not with you." So they what else did they do? They donated some money to the church. That's something that I've seen in both groups. I mean, we do have a couple players that are playing in both groups, so it kind of makes sense that some of the tactics are going to bleed over. But it is interesting that both groups are donating to the church quite regularly. Some of it is mandated. For those who know, clerics, it's expected, if not explicitly told. I can't remember if it says so specifically, but paladins, it says quite directly that they're going to be paying tithes. So it is nice to see that that's happening without me having to demand it. That's pretty neat. But the thing that basically you should keep in mind with that is, this is a component of play that I'm not really used to seeing play out that much. I have done old school play, but not this kind of like slow AD&D style campaign, where we're really taking our time, and you can tell that the player's approach is basically one of, we are expecting to invest into this world that we're playing in. God, I hope that this isn't lagging. So I don't know why the connection. I think it's bad weather. So I apologize if there's any stuttering or anything like that. The live stream is probably going to be like that, but the replay probably won't, from what I understand. Anyway, so basically, the thing is that whenever you put money into the church, assuming that the NPCs are honest people, they are going to be more privy to give you some assistance whenever you need it, which is really good, because it turns out that coming up soon, they are going to need it. So they did these things. They decided to venture back into the Moat house, and they were working their way through there. It was a pretty humorous encounter. If I already described this in a previous stream, then I apologize. But what one of the things that happened is they encountered a giant lizard on their way in. Yeah, they hadn't messed with him yet. Yeah, so Oswald, the halfling, took a wheel of cheese and basically presented it before the giant lizard in order to see if they could distract it while trying to get at the chest that he was guarding. For those who don't know, lizards don't eat cheese. The only reason I know this is because I've owned a bearded dragon. I don't think there are any lizards that can eat cheese. You can correct me, because lizards, different kind of lizards are going to be a little bit different, which is a good point. You guys should think about this whenever you have a giant lizard. What kind of giant lizard is it? Like a horned lizard? Is it a bearded dragon? What kind of giant lizard does it resemble? That's an interesting question, I think, because then that's going to tell you all kinds of stuff. What kind of temperament do they have, and what kind of food do they eat? And just imagine that, but bigger. And there you go. So basically, I did a reaction roll, as I am wont to do in those kinds of situations where I'm not really sure exactly how they're going to be acting. I do know that lizards in general are pretty, they're usually not going to be overly aggressive. A lot of times they are going to be trying to protect themselves above all. And, often they're pretty eager to retreat if something is messing with them. Like biting people is really just a last defense most of the time, unless they're incredibly hungry and you are a type of prey, basically. In this case, the thing was hungry, but it was vastly outnumbered, and it's not stupid. Giant lizards are not dumb animals, typically, from what I understand. So with that, this lizard was surrounded by people of, smaller stature than itself, but still in greater numbers. and it was being presented with some food. So I rolled the not morale check, the reaction roll. It was favorable, and I was like, okay, so in this case, it's going to chew this dadgum cheese, and it chewed the cheese while they searched the chest. And it was really, really unfortunate because the chest is basically just full of a little bit of crap, some armor, some copper coins, that kind of fun stuff. The great thing is that there is something very valuable nearby, but they didn't locate it. Who knows if they will? But in any case, they didn't. So they didn't kill the giant lizard, and so far it has not hunted them down. Should it come up on a random encounter roll, maybe it's going after them for one reason or another. Okay, so they continued on deeper into the place. This was, I believe, their first time actually going into the actual dungeon floor, because they had actually found two different ways down. They'd found a secret stairwell, and they had a main stairwell. They decided to take the secret stairwell. And whenever they did so, basically Grumbar, it came to a dead end. Grumbar and I want to say Oswald were basically looking around, and they both kind of found at around the same time that on walls parallel from each other, there were these stones that they were able to maneuver. And whenever they did so, it basically kind of like served as like latches. It made the walls swing open. Both of them swung these walls open. And so Oswald ended up in this room with a giant ogre. And the ogre basically hearing the noise, started heading in that direction. Oswald took some cover behind a pillar. And then some of the others, there was this moment where they could have gone about this many different ways, but they decided to go just balls deep into the whole situation. So basically the entire group charged the ogre. Did not last long at all. I want to say that Grumbar ended up coming in and finishing him off with a no. I could be mistaken on that. The ogre was dropped very quickly. Didn't really get to do anything on anybody. So it's always one of those situations with those larger creatures where it's kind of a nail biter, because at first level, a lot of these characters can die with one really good strike. And that is definitely a case whenever they're up against ogres like this. In any case, they actually dropped them with hardly any issue. They started searching the place. They found some valuables, nothing too crazy. They were looking around. I really feel like I do remember describing this. So we ended the session very shortly after this. I did describe this because they went in a little deeper into the place. After hearing some noises, they decided not to investigate just yet. They went another way and found a bunch of zombies, corralled them into a corner with using turn undead and some other stuff, and just burned them alive. They're undead, so as much as you can do that with undead creatures. And that was about the point where we ended it. So where we picked up the next time, which was 2 weeks later, basically they continued their search, finding, that there was a much larger chamber to the east, and they found it was a torture room, as it turns out. Just a lot of nasty gore and skeletons that were relatively fresh, which was kind of alarming, because it didn't look like they became skeletons because the flesh decayed. It looked like perhaps something else happened. Arnman is correcting me. He says Paladin took 12 of. Oh, I think you're thinking about the next one. I think you're thinking of the next one. He says ogre drained the spells. Yeah, that's right. There was the casting of light. That is, of course, something that it looks like Gary may have tried to nerf a little bit whenever he wrote first edition, at least with his explanation of it in the DMG. To at least some degree, because basically it says you can blind them, but it's going to stay still, so like they can just kind of move out of it, which, I mean, it's not nothing. If they move away from their position, then they're going to draw an attack of opportunity. which I mean, it's not called that at that point, but yeah, Arnman's point stands. It's not as though they went away scot free. They did have to use a lot of resources in order to kill the thing without receiving any kind of harsh penalties, losing massive HP or anything like that. So they went on. They investigated this torture chamber, basically found a secret door. Well, not really a secret door. They found a way to get inside this pillar. And this pillar, as it turns out, has these iron rungs that serve as basically a ladder that seems to descend deeper into this dungeon. And basically, they're like, we could go down there. There's this blood trail that continues to go down there, but we're not going to go down there. Not right now. No, we're not going to do that because, well, again, the deeper you go, the stronger the foe, and also because there's still quite a bit that they hadn't explored yet on this floor. So what happened next was they basically returned back to the area back where the zombies were. They started going westward, trying to explore some of that area. And they at that point, they saw from the bottom part, the base of the stairs. So the base of the stairs, again, almost all this is Hamlet spoilers, and I'm running this fairly by the book. So apologies to anybody who's really going to be offended by that. But basically, Grumbar decided he wanted to check out the stairwell, which, it was an ascending stairwell at this point, since this was the other way to get down to the dungeon. And the others were checking out the doors on the west side. So Grumbar steps up to the first step, basically. And at that point, there is a 75% chance that a little something drops from the heavens to greet him. And as it turns out, I rolled like a 23 or something. So it was well within the 75%. It was green slime. Now, I kind of fucked up a little bit on this. I have to admit it, because of the fact that I basically had I believe I was supposed to roll it as an attack roll, which I think I did an attack roll and a save versus breath attack, more or less. Just like, can you get away from it, and does it actually get on you, or is it getting on your armor, or that kind of thing? And either way, basically, he failed the save versus breath, but he did not get hit necessarily. Either way, I adjudicated it kind of poorly. So I kind of screwed up there. But the thing about green slimes is that once you get past them possibly dropping on you, then they're absolutely, benign, unless you try and mess with it. If you try and strike it, it's just going to cause you more grief or whatever. But they knew better. They basically set it aflame, and it has no movement, so it just perished. I kind of screwed up on that one, but it's okay. It's okay. We learn these things. I've never really used a green slime before, and it didn't really, that was just that was a learning moment. So in the future, whenever I have green slimes, I'm going to use them more, I don't know, accurately, I guess. Just do the attack roll. Just do the attack roll. If it hits, you're hit. If it doesn't hit, you're not hit. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. There we go. So that is, and I guess it should probably get some kind of surprise bonus, but I don't know about that. Anyway, that's beside the point. The rest of the group was investigating the west, opening doors. Basically, the doors were locked, and Oswald was just, for some reason, he just could not get the freaking things to open. So after that, they basically decided to kick the damn things in. And then after that, they basically discovered that both rooms were storerooms. There was just a ton of provisions in this place, and it was, kind of nice. Like, this is early enough in the game that whenever you find an absolute F ton, I'm trying to Christian channel of stuff that you can use as rations, as there was alcohol in there. They found just mundane equipment, armor, weapons, all that kind of stuff. It's actually kind of nice. They also found just a ton of capes that had this very specific design on them that they're like, they're raising an army in this place, aren't they? And they were basically starting to express some concern, quite appropriately. Basically, as they decided, they had their fill. They each, they kind of packed up some rations for themselves for later, and took some drinks, took some swigs of the brandy. Grumbar wasted no time getting a little bit tipsy, basically, as half orcs are wont to do, I suppose. And I want to say even some of the holy men might have. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Not at that moment. But in any case, so after they did that, they kind of got what they were looking for among those things, and they grabbed some capes because they thought maybe these could serve as good disguises. They basically closed the doors and started blocking them back up again. Now, while they were doing this, of course, I had been rolling random encounter checks the entire time. And it just so happened in this moment, I rolled a 1. So I did my little chart thing. For those who may recall, whenever I may have said this previously, but basically the random encounter chart for this area, it's not automatically going to be something that's going to fight you. There's actually a decent chance that you just hear a noise. But in this case, it was a group of gnolls. So these gnolls are on a patrol, and they are approaching from the east. And so they enter combat with these gnolls. Well, here's the problem. Here's the problem with this. As Arnman already noted, they had already been kind of drained on spells. Now, their magic user, I'm not really sure where he was at on spells, but he wasn't with them on that particular session. He had a family event come up, basically. And I didn't have his character sheet. Otherwise, I would have basically asked him if he wanted somebody to run his character for him, because not having any magic users at all is that's pretty stiff, because magic users are essentially your oh shit buttons. Dang it, I cursed. I couldn't help it. I'm sorry. I can only do it for so long. They're basically your oh crap buttons, so they can end a combat if bad stuff arises. And without him, they really just had to rely on brute force. All they had was sword and board and some heals. That's all they had left at this point. So what ended up happening, there were 5 gnolls. There were 5 gnolls and then 5 of them. So already they were immensely outnumbered in hit dice. Pure hit dice, not even close. It was not even close. They had 5 hit dice on their side, and there were 10 hit dice on the other side, which already should tell you, holy shit. Because these guys have a seriously high percentage of hitting. They have more HP. They have a really solid armor class. It was just not looking good for them. So I was just kind of like, they are so screwed. So it was kind of interesting because this moment arose where they're like, we just got these capes. Maybe if we put these capes on, then we'll be good to go. And basically, Dane was refusing to put on the cape because he's like, those belong to evil people. And he's a paladin, a lawful good paladin, probably a very stubborn lawful good paladin. Too good for this world, perhaps you might say. And he decided that with them approaching, while everybody else was just kind of putting on the capes, and they were prepared to pretend to be basically the new recruits, more or less. He was not so into that. He did his detect evil, and basically my ruling for gnolls is, yeah, they're evil. You can smell it. That's how evil they are. That Yinagu stuff is not to be played with. So they lit up like Christmas trees as far as his detect evil is concerned. And basically he charged them. So it was rough. It was a rough fight. Basically, one of the first things that happened, even though they struck down one of the gnolls very quickly because they won initiative. Um, they struck one down very quickly. Unfortunately, what happened was Plum was knocked down. Just boom, very 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 quickly. Leofric comes over to heal Plum, and then Leofric is knocked down. And then, so Oswald is going over there and he's pulling away Plum as Dane is healing Leofric. And, basically it's like there's just, the thing is, guys, honestly, from what I'm really seeing with regard to first edition AD&D, if somebody drops, you really lose a lot by stopping them from bleeding out. It's really rough. So basically I'm using a rule. It's a home rule where well, it's not one that I invented. It's one that I read somewhere, where basically you can survive a blow that lands you at as low as your con modifier for your extra hit points in negative HP. So basically if you have like a 15, I want to say it's like 15 or 16 HP con, then you get a +1. I think it's something like that. No. 15 is +1. 16 is +2, if I remember right. And then if you're a fighter, then a 17 is +3, and then an 18 is +4. I could be wrong, but I believe that that's accurate. So basically, the most that you could get to is a -4 if you have 18 con and you're a fighter. And basically, at that point, then you will bleed out every round. You lose an HP until you get to -10, and then you're dead. Basically, that's the way that we're doing things. More forgiving than the way that we do things with BX, which is just death at 0. Less forgiving than perhaps 5th edition. And this is something that became very evident in this fight, because what a lot of people may not do or may not know is that when somebody is healed, even magically, even if they are magically healed with like cure light wounds or cure serious wounds or anything like that, they are still going to be in a coma for a while, for hours. Well, maybe not hours, for turns. Okay. For the combat, they're not coming back into the combat. That's just not happening. Maybe that's possible with the actual heal spell, like the 7th level heal spell. That's not available right now. So it kind of gets to a point where it's sometimes maybe even better to just not even bother to heal them. Unless they're just, well, no, it may just be better not to heal them, honestly. But they didn't really know that. This was the first time that anybody was on death's door, if we want to use that terminology. So they were just doing what they thought the best thing that they could do was, which is, do first aid while they're in the middle of fighting. It did not bode well for them. But basically, this was them trying to preserve what lives they could, and then just getting struck down one after another. But in unison with this occurring, we also had Dane basically striking the first one down, then the second one, and then a third one. It was insane because he just kept on rolling high and rolling like massive damage over and over again. Like the first kill was a combined effort, but there were just a lot of basically it became a 3-on-1 because he was the only one standing at that point. He killed another one. And then at that point I was like, okay, this one guy has killed 3 gnolls. And as far as they can tell, he really hasn't suffered any at all. And I'm not talking about like any kind of he's just not being hit. So to them, he probably seems as this incredible badass. Lo and behold, Avray was just having a love affair with Dane that night, as it turns out, and maybe a hate affair for me, because I was just rolling absolute trash. So basically, I decided it's time to do a morale check. I could have made a ruling that because he's outnumbered, even though it was 2-1, to me, I was like, he has already slain. He's cut them down into less than half. He has himself not really suffered any fatalities at all. He's, he just looks like he's a total badass right now. I was going to say there's at least a chance. So, I used all of the numbers that are in the book. I did this precisely, and one of them fled completely. The other one stayed. So the one that fled didn't notice that Oswald had crept up the stairs, because basically they were commanding Oswald, because Oswald didn't really want to leave. Oswald the halfling, they are commanding him basically to get the hell out of here, because it just looked like it was going to be a TPK, and there's no sense in everybody dying, basically. So Oswald, he snuck up the stairs and left, and Dane continued fighting. And so, like I said, there were two left. One of them fled, and so it was a 1v1. And then basically, I just kept missing. He kept hitting. So he slew the last gnoll that was still around, dragged the guys into that room, back where, basically the room full of provisions, and bandaged them up. I calculated rounds and everything. Basically, Grumbar was at -9 HP whenever he was spared, whenever he got his first aid. So just right on the edge of dying. Plum was very close himself. And I want to say that Leofric was kind of okay, because he got healed in the middle of it. But it was close. It was incredibly close. So this was incredibly heroic. Here's the problem, though. The problem is that, as I said, they are unconscious. They are in a coma, essentially, for a long time. Two of them were unconscious for 50 minutes. One of them was unconscious for 20. And unfortunately for them, it was not going to be long before that runaway gnoll was going to go report to his superiors and come back with backup. So, because this is a living place. So basically, Dane had a choice. He had a choice. He is a paladin of Heronius, and his choice was to flee and leave his friends to die, because he can't drag them all out of here. He maybe could save one. Maybe. Just maybe. But they would slow him down. There's a good chance that he would be caught anyway. Or basically to hunker down and try and hold the fort until reinforcements arrive. Oswald was on his way back to the village to try and get help, but I mean, it's at least going to be 5 hours to get there and back, round trip, and that's assuming that he can find somebody that can help them quick enough for it to matter. So, unfortunately, before 20 minutes, after about 20 minutes had passed, basically a large group of reinforcements arrived, and there was this exchange where basically Dane and Grumbar were the only ones conscious. The other two were still passed out. Grumbar, for those who don't know, basically after you regain consciousness in AD&D, after going down like that and not quite bleeding out, basically, even if you are healed by magical methods, you still are fundamentally worthless. You can't fight for basically an entire week. You have to have an entire week of rest. All you can do really is just walk back to a place where you can collapse and rest for a week. So Grumbar basically was not able to do anything other than just sit there and drink booze, basically. And so Dane saw how basically he was definitely by himself with regard to any kind of fighting. And he could hear on the other side of the door that there were many, many others. And somebody came and started speaking to him in common, which, before the gnolls were trying to speak, but they couldn't. So he kind of assumed that this was not a gnoll. And basically, the guy was expressing his admiration. He was just saying, "You are one hell of a fighter," because he got the report back from the gnolls about how this guy had taken down so many of their men. So because of that, he wasn't taking any chances. He brought well over 10 people there, armed with bows and arrows, axes, all these kinds of things. and Dane has absolutely nowhere to go. He basically asks Dane if he would join him. He basically says, "What are you doing here?" And then Dane, being somebody who doesn't lie, really, for better or worse, just said that they were investigating what was going on here because they thought that there might be something afoot, more or less. And so basically, the leader gave him one chance to join them, and Dane refused quite adamantly. And then he said that he was going to give him a chance to surrender and come talk to his leader peacefully. And he basically said that that is the only way that they can make it out alive right now, more or less. It was, he was basically putting the foot down and saying, you drop your weapons and then we'll see if maybe you get to live. It was this commander's attempt to try and limit any more casualties on his side. And Dane, thought about it for a moment. You could see the look on the player's face. He was really thinking this over. But because I'm guessing it's because he likes this character. He seems to really like this character. But at the same time, he had to do what he felt like was true to the character that he was playing. And as I said before, Dane was really too good for this world. So he basically told him to shove it, more or less, which possibly could have meant just condemning his friends to death. It is very well something that could be a plausible result from that. We're not really sure exactly where things are going from there. But basically what he decided to do is he decided to soak up that side of the door in flames. First, soaking it up with that brandy, set it on fire. And as they were trying to chop it down, basically kicking it open, charging out, which that's exactly what he did. And, we rolled initiative just to see if he was going to be able to get off some strikes before the volley of arrows struck him. But he did lose the initiative and he went down in a hail of arrows. And it was fucking epic. That's really the only way to describe it. This was an epic death. I haven't really had very many deaths go down like that before. A lot of times, you have deaths that happen and I don't know, like they tend to feel very I don't know, like kind of out of nowhere or something like that. And there was a sense that this was out of nowhere, but it wasn't because like all of a sudden the dice just screwed him over and it was done. Ironically, I had one of those last night. But no, it wasn't because of that. It was because this is just the way things played out, because it had to play out that way. They were enormously outnumbered. It's really a miracle that he even survived as long as he did and killed as many of them as he did. So, I mean, it was an epic send-off for this character. So he perished right there. And after that, basically the gnolls and the guards, they collected the surviving members and they dragged them off into the chamber where the leader of the place is living, basically. And that is more or less where we left off. Oswald got back to town and was trying to find people that might be able to come back and help, more or less. And that's basically where we left off. So where the players are doing now is they're rolling new characters, because we don't know if these characters that they currently have are actually surviving this encounter with this baddie. It's very likely that he just has them executed. He just tortures them for what information they have and then executes them. And I think that they understand that that's on the table, because there was a moment where they said, nobody seems to know that these people are here. So that's not a good thing for them. People aren't really getting away with it, basically. So there's a lot going on there. Okay, so that was Group A. That's the Hamlet group. Okay. Group B, they've only had one session since we last spoke, which I guess technically, I think the other one was only one session too. It's just that I forgot that I had already talked about it until I started talking about it again. And I was like, wait, I feel like I've already talked about this. So, yes, Group B. So Group B, they Okay, so they basically they had saved all these slaves from inside the quarry and dark shelf. Deep within the quarry in the second floor, they had recovered like 27 slaves, and they also saved Quan. Stop looking at me, Quan. And they slew some bugbears. They slew a bunch of goblins. Just all around awesome stuff, and nobody died. So it was a good session. And they got back to town. They basically were told, we would love to bring this guy to justice, this guy who is running this quarry, because clearly he's involved in some slave trade, and we ain't having that. So if you would stick around, we're going to try and gather some militiamen, and we're going to go march on that place, and we're going to capture them, because we can't be having people slaving, doing slave trade this close to our town. It ain't right, basically. That was the plan. Well, the group decided, if we let everybody go there, then if they find treasure, it's not just ours anymore, which is incredibly sensible on the players, and I respect it 100%, because I had completely considered it. I was like, if you guys wait, I didn't tell them this. They came to this decision on their own. I was very, very, very adamant to not push them in any direction. They basically said, if we don't go ourselves first, we don't get our pick of the treasure. So let's go. And go they did. So basically they broke back into the quarry using the same entrance, and this time it was guarded, the well that they had used before, but they dispatched guards quite easily. They actually dispatched some guards on the way there and got some new horses. So pretty much everybody's mounted at this point, which that's fine. It's fine. I was going to say, maybe I shouldn't have put so many horses out there, but no, it's fine. In any case, so they worked their way back inside, and it was really just a very successful venture back into this place. There's really not too much to describe about what they found. Basically, what they did do is they captured another goblin, and this is the second time that they'd captured a goblin, and they interrogated him. And this time, I did some reaction rolls and all that kind of stuff. Not only was he thoroughly scared of them, but he was also feeling kind of charitable, especially because they kept on giving him money. So they actually got a little bit of information out of him. Whether it's useful or not, we'll see. We'll see how trustworthy he is. But they basically found out that Greyhawk is actually keeping even more slaves up in the guard tower. So they're thinking about going up there and trying to free them. They found out some other stuff too, but dang it, it's been over a week since that happened, and I can't quite remember exactly what exactly. Yeah, I that's the gist of it. He did give them some information about what was going on deeper. He basically said, if you wanted to find more of those weird creatures, those mud tigers, that you have to go deeper in, and that Greyhawk was up there, and that he was staying up there, and that there were more prisoners up there. So they kind of were able to conclude that that means that at least some of the guardsmen are probably in on it. They haven't quite confirmed that yet, because they've been trying to figure out, how much mercy do we give these humans up there that are conspiring, or at least working with these slavers? They might not even know that they're working with slavers, basically. So they did find that out. They did do that. And they found their way into a goblin den. Basically, when I say that, this whole place has been full of goblins, but this was full of goblins. They slew a ton of goblins. It was pretty awesome. I have to say, I guess this was the thing that we have learned perhaps from AD&D First Edition, is that basically a thief is a pretty pretty solid, sneaky person. I know it sounds obvious to say that, but considering the percentages that you're left with in BX at level 1, well, actually, this guy's level 2, so we will give him that. But the fact that you have these bonuses for dexterity, these bonuses for racial markers and things like that, then they are incredibly competent compared to having a 20% or a 15% chance to hide in shadows or to move silently. So what that is kind of ended up with is little Finn the halfling is a killing machine. And it's been pretty cool. This group is level 2, so they have been, they've had more spells at their leisure to utilize. They have I want to say they have 2 clerics. They have a druid, and druids are surprisingly badass. I mean, they keep on surprising me with how badass the druids are too. So it's been really cool just to see the differences between BX and first edition. It's a lot more prominent than I thought. And I mean, I guess I should have known this because I've been playing second edition for quite some time now. I mean, I've been on a break from that just because of scheduling, but I played well over a year. And but the problem was that my cleric had absolute dog shit stats, so he didn't get any of this nifty stuff. He actually had a penalty that made it where he failed his spell casting 10% of the time. So in any case, where we kind of left off there, I mean, they're still deep in there. They're still looking for treasure. There were some kind of back and forth after they found some really nice stuff. I mean, they found a whole bunch of treasure down there where the goblins are staying. So they know that they could head out of there and make a pretty nifty penny, but they seem like they're still interested in going further. So I think they're going to go further and maybe try and bring the bads to justice before they try and capitalize on their gains so far. That's what Group B is up to currently. So we're going to be picking up with them again on Monday, and I'm really looking forward to it. I gotta say, like, these have been fantastic. As much as I've been, kind of struggling in some ways, getting used to first edition because, it's just different. At the same time, I don't know, things are just kind of clicking for me here and there, or maybe it's just that I'm not as meticulous, I guess. Like maybe I'm just letting myself screw up. I don't know. But like most of the things that were troubling me before really are flowing a lot better now, I think. I mean, I guess the players are the only ones that can really be the true, determinants. They're the ones that really know whether or not that's the case. But so moral of these stories, it really, really, really matters if you are using like just the very precision of the kind of rules that you're using for death, because basically it was incredibly during that session, not this one, but the one before I was talking about. I think 2 of them landed directly on 0 HP, which I figured would be almost never, that would almost never happen. If I wasn't using that rule where basically they could land at -1 or -2, depending on what their con is, then things may have played out a little bit differently. Because perhaps they instantly died. Dane is the only one standing. And then at that point, he would have just left. That could have very well happened. So maybe he would have survived, but the rest of them would have been dead. Either way, very interesting stuff things have been happening in the first edition game. So I'm loving it. And I'm probably going to keep talking about it, especially whenever there's something really interesting that happens. Like I said, I've never had a death that cool. That wasn't just the DM making it happen, basically. Every other death has been just kind of like, I don't know, funny or just shocking, like in the second edition game, one of the notable deaths was whenever a character just happened to mess with an antenna that was sticking out of the ground. And it turns out it belonged to an onkeg, and it critted him to death. And it was just over. You know, it was nothing like this where somebody had exhibited an inordinate amount of bravery and then, you know, went down in like this Leonidas type fashion, you know. So it was awesome. That's all I can say. Even the player was happy with the death. So yeah, that's cool. All I did was I ran it exactly as faithful as I possibly could. That's all I did. I think that's what gives it more value, because, you know, we could strive to make these games make stuff like that play out. But I feel like that kind of, it doesn't cheapen it necessarily, but it makes this a little bit more prominent. I think that this is just the way that the dice fell and the way that these decisions were made and the ramifications thereof. So cool stuff. Very, very cool stuff. I'm going to take a short break. I'm going to end this stream, and then I think I'm going to do a stream not going over anything. Playing NetHack. If you're familiar with NetHack, it's basically like D&D, but single player without people on the computer. It's pretty cool. I'm pretty terrible at it, but it's kind of neat, and I thought it might be fun to stream it. I'm not going to be doing it for too long because I don't want to be up too late. I got work in the morning. But anyways, yeah, it's been a very busy week. A lot of gaming, which is awesome. Yeah, I played Monday, I played Wednesday, I played Thursday, and then of course I streamed on Tuesday. So more stuff coming in the coming weeks. And thank y'all for hanging out. I've been reading a lot of I finished 3 Hearts and 3 Lions, and I'm reading Tales of the Dying Earth. And basically I'm wanting to do some Appendix N book reviews, basically, you know, just talking about what I've learned from them, because my God, there is so much incredible stuff. I mean, I could, you guys, if you haven't read these books, you need to read these books. I'm telling you, like, not even just like for pure, I mean, that should be why you read books, right? At least fantasy novels, is for the enrichment, the joy that it brings you, the entertainment value alone, right? Well, but this is actually kind of like research material, kind of, for how to make awesome. Damn it, I'm just starting to make a new video. I need to shut up because I'm going to give away everything that I was going to talk about. So anyway, I'm really excited to start talking about those books, because they are really special. And I'm going to try. I think I'm going to try and make those like really tight, curated, edited videos, so that I just get the goods, and, you know, you just get the facts. They're nice and concise, and that way the normies that, you know, come upon it can also enjoy it, because they're not going to want to listen to me yammer on for, you know, an hour, half an hour, something like that. Their attention span's much shorter than that. So Brad says, I've been telling you to shut up for years, and now you think about doing it. Yeah, I'm finally learning. John D says, honorable but foolish. It's a quotation from Villains. Robbie says, we should have went down the ladder. I don't know about that. You'll just have to find out what's down door number 2, huh? Guess we're gonna have to do that. Deep hard foes. Yes, deep hard foes. That's a good shorter way to put that. The deeper you go, the harder the foe. Yeah, deep hard foes. Oh yeah, Doof said that he redacted Gwen. Good job, buddy. All right. I guess there are no more comments, really. So I guess there's nothing else for me to do. Thanks for hanging out, y'all. Like I said, I'm thinking that I'm going to stream playing some NetHack, so we can just kind of chill out while I play that. And you know, I think that my computer can handle it, because that thing could be run on a toaster and it would work just fine. So I should be able to stream while playing that. Okie dokie. And you can watch me die miserably over and over again. All right. I'll see y'all in a little bit if you're there for that. Peace out.